I think the Venezuela thing played a huge role in this. I think that Venezuela moment, you saw him on TV, Mario, talking about, it looked amazing. It looked like a movie. It was so amazing. And it's Donald Trump at his most excited, schoolboy-esque, the guy who was in Home Alone 2, getting really excited about the fact that he took out this leader in a foreign country in this special operation. He got plaudits from the DC media and even from many Democrats. And he thought, oh, we'll do it with Khamenei. And by the way, he's on the record, Mario, saying that when they bombed Khamenei, they had a list of leaders that they wanted to replace him with. They thought they could do a deal with. But they killed them as well by accident, such as the incompetence of the U.S. administration right now. He thought he could swap out Khamenei. He's talked on the record about, I should get a say in who the next leader of Iran is, like he does in Venezuela. He thought they would have a Delcy Rodriguez in place. The Iranians are very different to Venezuela. The Iranian people are very different. The country is it's different to Iraq, too. There's a lot of ignorance, Mario, about the Middle East. You live in the region. You know how much people in the West are ignorant about Arabs, Iranians. Even telling the difference between Arabs and Iranians is something many people in the West struggle to do. Telling the difference between Khomeini and Khamenei has been difficult for many members of Congress on American TV recently. The ignorance about the Strait of Hormuz, the reporting from CNN that Pete Hegseth got very upset about today, which says that they didn't expect Iran to shut it down in the way they did. Well, that's pretty stupid of you, because Iran had always said they were going to do that. They always said they were going to hit Gulf countries as their response to an American attack. Trump said on the record, I didn't know they were going to hit the Gulf like this. Well, this is the problem now. And now, because of their egos, I think they will continue down this path. We're seeing this Marine Expeditionary Force heading for the Gulf, 2,500 Marines, which would be insane to send in a ground force. The Iranians would love nothing more than a ground war. The foreign minister has made that very clear. My good friend Jeremy Scahill from Dropsite, he said to Zeteo this week, it would be a bloodbath. These are people who fought for 8 years in the trenches against Saddam Hussein's Iraq, against chemical weapons. And it took 8 years for Ayatollah Khomeini, not Khamenei, to sign a ceasefire with Iraq.
So you think there will be an invasion?
I don't do predictions anymore. It's very hard to predict what Donald Trump's going to do. But no, I don't rule it out. I think it's very likely at this point. It's more likely than not.
That's fucking terrifying.
It is.
It's terrifying that 2 weeks ago, I was the one saying that there's no way there's going to be an attack. If there was an attack, it'll be a very short attack. You said it yourself. You're the most vocal voices, one of the most vocal voices about Israeli influence in the US. And you said it yourself. You did not expect us to be here today. Yet here we are.
On this level, no. And I think, look, by the way, even if the Americans try and wrap up this war, a couple of things. One is the Iranians aren't going to wrap up this war. They want to reestablish deterrence. They want the West to pay a painful price so it doesn't happen again. And the Israelis aren't going to wrap up this war. They've been waiting 40 years, as Benjamin Netanyahu put it. They've got their own agenda, which is different to the American agenda. And they're going to carry on pulverizing Iran as much as they can to make it into a failed state.
There's also reports, you said the alternatives to Khamenei that were killed, the alternatives that Trump had in mind. So I'm not sure if that's public or not, but I spoke to someone on the show who said that they've got reports that was the Israelis that killed the alternatives, because it seems there's diverging objectives right now. Yep. Exactly. So that's, I talk about how Trump, it's all about energy, so tariff war against China, the AI race, and for him, the Strait of Hormuz, he's a businessman, it's the Strait of Hormuz. Not saying the war is a good idea. I'm a pacifist. I think it's a horrible idea. But the strategy behind it made more sense. But then that's a very different objective to what Israel has. For Trump, he just needs a regime that's more friendly with him. Whether Iran is strong or not doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
If the regime is critical of Israel, but it's open to doing business with Trump, I think Trump will do business with him.
You heard Trump say it. I mean, the funny thing about Trump, one of the few redeeming features of having Trump as president is he just says the quiet part out loud all the time. Yeah. So he goes on TV and he says, they say to him on one of the many phone interviews he did, are you okay with a non-democratic leader of Iran? Yeah, sure. Are you okay with a religious leader of Iran? Yeah, sure. As long as they're fine with America and Israel, they're into it. So the other presidents would have pretended that this was about democracy or saving the Iranian people. Trump doesn't even bother with the pretense. And then the Israelis go even further. They're not pretending that they even care about the future of Iran. They're saying anyone who's the supreme leader we will kill, anyone who's in charge we will kill. They would love nothing more than just chaos in Iran, just as there is in Syria and Lebanon. Trump has made it very clear he can work with Delcy Rodriguez, a communist, or he calls her a communist, but he's happy to work with her, elected, alongside Maduro. He's happy to work with Ahmad al-Sharaa, formerly known as Gilani, the former leader of al-Qaeda in Syria. Trump is fine to work with Putin. He's fine to work with a lot of people. He would have been fine to work with an Iranian leader who rolled over for him. That Iranian leader does not exist. Certainly, Mujtaba Khamenei is not going to roll over for Donald Trump when Donald Trump just killed his mum, his dad, possibly his wife, his sister, etc.
His niece, his brother-in-law, I think, or sister-in-law. So yeah, the point I was making, if it's there's divergent objectives here. Israel's objective is to turn Iran into a failed state, and I think this is where maybe Trump got into this for the energy, but now he's still into it because of Israel, because he's stuck now in Iran that he has to clean up the mess. What happens to the region? I know you don't like to speculate. What do you think the Gulf nations will react to this? They're not, so you saw the letter by Al Habtour to Trump, scolding Trump. And then he did another one to Netanyahu saying you're working on behalf of, he saw that one, you're working on behalf of Israel instead of the US. What happens to American bases in the region who Mustafa said he wants the bases out? What happens to American presence? What happens to American allies? And what happens to the Israeli-US relations? Is that ever going to shift, or is it going to remain the same as it has for decades?
Well, one of the driving forces behind US military bases in the region, and there are a lot of them, was Iran, right? I mean, even the famous Project for New American Century report from the year 2000, the year before 9/11, which talked about the need for a Pearl Harbor catalyzing event for US foreign policy. Even that report talked about the need to keep bases in the region even after Saddam is gone to deal with Iran. We know that's why US troops stayed in Iraq so long, to monitor Iran. And the irony is we're now at war with Iran. It's not like they prevented a war with Iran. It's not that so the very things that were supposed to nominally keep America safe have become the easiest way for America to lose lives, right? American troops losing lives in some of these places. So some of us have said for 20 years that America's bases around the world don't make America safer. They simply endanger America and incite anti-Americanism. So there's a big question about American bases under a future, maybe Democratic president. And then, of course, the Gulf countries, you know more than I do about the Gulf countries. They made a deal with the US, which they thought would be financially beneficial and they thought would give them security. I think they've discovered that the finances long-term are problematic. You've got all these big American companies pulling out of the Gulf.